Let this be your wake-up call. The next 6 to 8 months, a lot of things will change. I don't know exactly to the magnitude, but I do feel that we should always be prepared. I always refer back to the story of Joseph. 7 years of glory, 7 years of famine, and then 7 years just capitalization on the people that weren't prepared, and the struggle was real. How I'm doing it is ensuring that I'm being very careful in the spending. The saving habits is very important. If you cannot build that up, start small. Start with small goals. If you cannot do 10%, start with 5%. But one thing I can say with savings, always have some type of charitable organization or something you give it back to, because it creates that purpose. For some reason, it builds this motivation for you to get more, and you're also attracting more. This is how it was written in the Bible. That's why God always says for us to give back. He will always fill our cups because we keep making space for him to put more inside of it. And that is why this principle, this habit, it really carries through a long way for you to build and increase your saving habits. For me, personal testimony, the more I've given, the more I've been able to receive. And I've had a gradual increase since the beginning. I started doing this over 10 years ago. And I started small, 4% of what I was getting. And then eventually I got to 5, then to 10. And now I'm at 20. This is God's glory just magnifying inside of my life. But the next 6 to 8 months, I know we've all been hearing the news about how the market's been on the shaky patterns. Bitcoin dropped from its peak of 120 something thousand to 80 something thousand. This is the time where you really capitalize. Don't let that sit there. Just know that you're getting that at a discount if you're purchasing right now. I'm not telling you to throw everything you got right now inside of it. That's not the case. There's this gradual pattern of investing. It's called dollar cost averaging. If you're starting right now in investing, you're getting it at like a 30% discount. Ethereum, which peaked at like 4,500, is all the way down to 2,000 and something dollars. So you're getting it almost at 50% off. You got to think about these like a Black Friday sale. It's the same mentality that we got to have when these things happen. But recurring investing right now, you don't want to throw everything because we don't know which direction it's going to go. But don't sit on the sideline entirely and just let this pass by. You should always be in the market in some capacity. You don't have to do recurring. Me, I don't do recurring for everything, but I started this earlier this year. I do have recurring that's going on. But when I see these dips happen, I put some more in to capitalize on the fact that I'm getting these at a discount. It's not time for me to run away and panic. This is the way that wealth is being made. The most money I've ever made on any trade is on the downtrend. It was never when things were going up. It was always when people were running away, and out of random, no one was talking about it. Out of random, all of a sudden, people were starting to talk about it, and then boom, I was able to reap the benefits of it. And it's the same mentality that we need to have when it comes to today. And that saving habits comes with that sacrifice. You are going to have to give up some pleasures. I was actually thinking about taking some vacation right now, but with the fact that I have debt to pay, I'm trying to clear down as much of it as possible. And that's the thing. And these are not debts where I'm paying high interest off. These are like regular credit card debts. Pretty much I owed the money to, no interest on it. I just make the payment, not the minimum payments, but the payments I need to do to avoid any type of interest. Some of them are on fixed monthly expenses, like on my Amazon card, my Best Buy cards. I just pay whatever I need to pay to ensure that I'm not paying any interest. But other than that, any excess that I get, I'm putting it towards the investment side. I had some work I had to do, some renovation. I've completed all that. I'm moving away from this like survival-ish mode to this more of investment-minded mode, a lot more than I was before. I still had investments going. I didn't touch any of the investments, any of savings at all. Instead, I'm relying on me to be able to consume from the work that I'm doing. I'm doing the best I can to amplify ways to bring in more and more on my side, not taking capitalization of other people, but me working harder and doing so many different areas. The creativity out there is just at a boom, especially with AI. You have the capability to do so much more now. Yes, I have a skill set in music and technology. I know how to design and build apps. I didn't know everything. With the AI thing that's happening, I have the second person in the room that is so knowledgeable, and I could just tell it to do this and do that, and it's going to pay attention and actually do it. Same with music. I got these apps like Suno, which I'm able to feed it some old tracks that I have, able to feed it, and it's able to output a full song. But I'm still collaborating with real people that's skillful and knowledgeable in these things, because one thing I notice is that with AI, when you let it just do everything by itself, it becomes repetitive. It becomes common. There's no sense of distinguishment, uniqueness to it, no style. When we integrate ourselves into it, we bring forth that style, that uniqueness that it doesn't quite comprehend all the way yet. All it does is imitate, and tries to find the best of what we perceive as great value to other people. And it brings that to the forefront to our attention. And we're like, oh, this is good. Because I remember when I first started listening to some R&B that was created by AI. I was like, wow, this is pretty good. But after a while, it starts being pretty repetitive. And those tools are available to you today. And that's if you want to dabble into that. But you got to find some way to bring in something extra right now at this moment. You got to find a way to either lower the expenses and bring in that margin between what you're able to save. You can use this free calculator. It's at freebudgetplan.com. You could just put in some basic expenses. It doesn't account for everything, but it's a good starting point for you to calculate in terms of in total how much you're bringing in and how much your expenses are. That one has a goal of 25%. It is pretty aggressive, but at least if you can aim to get there, I think it's going to motivate you to eventually get there, because I think it's crucial that right now you start this recurring investment while the market is going through this weird trend. The Dow is down, NASDAQ is down, the S&P 500 is down, as well as all crypto is down. Not down to the point where it completely crashed, but it's down to its peaks. And that's where the normal stabilization of the market always happens. And those are the times you want to always start buying, doing this recurring cycle. You have to treat this as a pattern that you're doing constantly without even thinking about it. And then later down the line, you'll be like, oh, I forgot I had this in here. If you're in the market looking for a home right now, it is hard. Things are not coming down to the capacity that we need them to. The interest rates are still high. The home prices are still high. If the home prices were certain high, but the salaries that people were bringing in were higher to keep up with it, then it would have made no difference, right? It's a perceived value based upon what someone is willing to pay for versus the struggle that they got to go through to pay for and what they actually have to be able to pay for it. All these factors come in terms of what we consider to be expensive. So $825,000 home may not be much for someone who makes $300,000 a year, but for someone who makes $60,000, $70,000 a year, they have to save so much to be able to do that. Where is the marriage that's supposed to happen between reality of what we're earning versus what we can afford in the areas that we want to live in? And that's where the separation is happening right now. That's why we got to go through this mental shift and rethink of how we're going through in life. Because right now, these corporations, they will eat us up. They don't care. They don't give a crap. The people inside these corporations, yes, they're humans at the end of the day. But you got all these rolled up, high up investors at the top end. They don't give a crap. All they care about is profit, profit, profit. Every single quarter, there has to be an increase. If there's not, people are going to be held accountable. And that's why these layoffs happen. And we have to be prepared for this. We cannot be fully dependent on them at all. We should be able to survive a full year without having to have a job. That is not the reality for most people. That's the struggle we all face. We're living paycheck to paycheck. How do we break out of that cycle? I'm not saying I wasn't there. I grew up that way because my parents didn't have it all together. I seen them struggle and go through these cycles where we went through difficult times, but they did make sacrifices. They did take investment risks for them to be able to get to where they are. My plan is to do better than they had, because that's what our parents are supposed to do. They're supposed to nourish us so that we could do 10 times, 100 times better than they have to be able to have that increase. And we have to be able to have that switch in our mindset. The mindset is the biggest thing. When something controls your mind, it can disrupt you. It can destroy your entire life. If you retain control of that and your mentality has that pathway of success, then you have switched that mindset and you're able to accomplish that. It is not about the circumstances that you're currently lied in. It's about where you're trying to go and having that mentality to know that I'm here. This is my surrounding right now, but doesn't mean I have to stay exactly where I'm at today. There's a pathway forward. We can do it. I'm able to do that. I'm able to achieve this. People are upset that Musk has a $1 trillion package, and people think he's going to have $1 trillion sitting in his bank account. That is not the case. Most of this is going to be tied to Tesla stocks. He's going to be held accountable per year of accomplishing certain milestones. If he does this year, this, that year, and this, that year in terms of revenue, then he gets this much per year. This is not a one-time thing. And don't be mad, because this man worked hard for him to get to where he is. He made decisions to be able to get to where he is. Instead of you complaining and nagging about how this, and that, why don't you come up with something? Why don't you do something to try to get yourself to that $1 trillion package? Because the more you can control, the more impact you can make on society. The more you can give to society, the more you're able to control. It's like a two-way relationship. So find some way to give to people, to service people, and in return, So find some way to service people, to give to people, to bring some value into their lives. And in return, you will see some benefit that comes back to you. And that might come in the form of some type of investment that just grows and you own equity in that. And that turns into a business which could become so profitable that you're able to do a bigger difference inside of this world. This man did not get here overnight. He worked through get to where he is. And they don't have that money sitting in no bank account. And that's what a lot of people have confused. Like, that money is being held in some type of equity on some contract. They can access some of the money, but not everything. And their financial advisors would never enable them to do that. A lot of money is tied up in these big institutions like Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs. They all have a say inside of these big people, these CEOs that have so much. They actually are the ones that's making a lot of this decision. Even though it comes under Musk's name or Bezos' name, does not mean entirely it's sitting inside of some bank account. No, they work with these banks to ensure that they can find ways to stimulate the economy, create jobs, invest in different areas, to grow, bring forth new technologies. Those are the benefits that they're bringing, creating more spaces for people to live. And that's where a lot of people get upset, because you were on that side to be able to do that. And not all of us has the mindset, the capacity to be able to do that. And that's why I'm telling you, you can find something, to find a way to bring some extra on your side, to be able to start investing. You could have recurring investing in stocks. You don't need to be as these people in order for you to build wealth. You could just do your regular job and just to be able to do that. I've seen my parents going through that. Over 20 years ago, they purchased a home in one area that nobody wanted to live in. 20 years later, that property was worth millions. They didn't get millions back. And of course, with all the tax things they had to do an exchange. So the money that they actually walked away with was a lot less. They had transferable asset from one asset to the other to avoid certain taxations through something called a 1031 exchange. Without that, they would have been in a terrible, terrible state right now, because their income did not increase to the capacity at which these home prices have increased. And that's what I'm trying to get you to think. Own assets. Do things. Try to think about ideas you can service people. It might turn into a business or something else for you to be able to bring in something. But that servicing part is what's important. Don't think about the money, but think about what you can do. Build the habits of the saving aspect, recurring investing, as well as knowing that you cannot rely on your current circumstances. If things are not great, they're not in the perfect conditions that you want, you got to look towards the future, not by what you see in front of you. So that's why I always say, peace and love. Trust in Jesus. Have an amazing one. Hustle, 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 step.